All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share a part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Through the gifts of technology, we also gather virtually to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Welcome to all those who are joining us in this way today. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love.
Arise, O souls, arise.
Good morning. I'm David Yackel. I'm a member of All Souls, and I echo the welcome stated in the video for those both here and those watching online. When we say welcome here at All Souls UU Church, we welcome you. You, with all the identities you hold, in your fullness as a person, are welcome here. We hope that you will bring your whole self to this time together. We welcome those who have long been a part of our community and those here for the first time. Please extend this welcome through conversations with new faces after the service. It may be the beginning of a long, warm relationship. Let our service begin.
Today, we light the fourth Advent candle, which I'm going to do now. The candle for peace. May we find peace in our own hearts. May we work to build peace in the world. Christmas will come in exactly 1 week, and yet we are still waiting. Our opening words this morning are by Cricket Hall. This is the time of waiting. May we hold the world in our hearts. In this time of waiting, may we hold each other's hands. In this time of waiting, may we be thoughtful and introspective. In this time of waiting, may we delight in the darkness and all it teaches us. In this time of waiting, may we rekindle the fires of hope, love, joy, and peace within ourselves and our communities. In this time of waiting, may we become ready for the coming day. Ari?
Good morning. My name is Ari, and I light this chalice for the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
And now if you would stand as you are able for our covenant, and then stay standing for Song 221, Light One Candle. Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Hanukkah is a Jewish holiday, and in truth, not a very important one. It happens every year, sometime in December, and lasts for 8 nights. Let me tell you the story of Hanukkah. A long time ago, the land of Israel was ruled by a cruel tyrant from Syria named Antiochus. He wanted all of the people of the land to worship him and his Greek gods. This wicked king outlawed Judaism, Shabbat, and Torah study. He set up idols in the temple and made forbidden sacrifices. One day, a Syrian soldier came to the town of Modi'in with the statue of Antiochus. He wanted all the Jews to worship this idol. Mattathias, a Jewish leader, smashed the idol and said, "All who want to fight for the Lord, follow me." And this is how the revolt began. Mattathias and his 5 sons led the fight against Antiochus and his army. Judah, the strongest son, was nicknamed Maccabee, which means hammer. Succeeding his father, Judah became the leader of the freedom fighters who came to be known as the Maccabees. After 3 years, the Maccabees were victorious and freed the city of Jerusalem. They cleaned out the temple and prepared to rededicate it, but they needed pure oil for the menorah. The Talmud tells that they found enough oil for only one day. Miraculously, it lasted for 8 days. Each year, on the 25th day of Kislev, we commemorate the rededication of the temple and the miracle of the light by celebrating Hanukkah and lighting candles for 8 days. Tonight will be the first night of Hanukkah. So I've set up the menorah with the center candle, the shamash, and one candle at the far right for one night. Each night of Hanukkah, another candle is added, until on the 8th night of Hanukkah, there are 8 candles burning along with the shamash, which is the helper candle used to light the others. Hanukkah will not actually begin until tonight. So we're going to leave the menorah unlit, ready for the celebration to begin. And now we will sing our children to their classes.
Wow, this is tall. Good morning. My name is Alex Westerfeld. I'm the chair of the Stewardship Committee this year. For all of us, there are moments when the usual trajectory of our lives is changed for the better by a single event, a sudden insight, the action of another person within our orbit, a birth. Our trajectory shifts onto a new path, providing us with new opportunities and challenges. A congregation also has a trajectory, one that can be shifted by the individual actions of a member or by the entire congregation. Today, our trajectory is about to shift. The size of the shift will depend upon all of us, but it starts with this. Ginger Powers has given All Souls a gift of $55,000. This is a challenge gift toward eliminating the church's accumulated deficit. She'll match all other gifts for that purpose up to $55,000 from today through January 31st of next year. To further that shift in our trajectory, Bob Miller is donating $20,000 toward Ginger's challenge gift. This means if the rest of us step up and contribute an additional $35,000, then we have $110,000 and cleared the red ink from our balance sheet. I encourage you to meet this challenge with your gift. $20 can become $40, $50 can become $100, $500 can become $1,000. The challenge can change our trajectory. It can set us on a path of more mindful stewardship. We're not asking for your matching gifts today. We want you to think about it and be intentional. There's more information about this on the church website, and I, as well as members of the Board of Trustees, will be available after the service if you have questions or you want to discuss your giving options with us. But most importantly, as you have the opportunity, please thank both Ginger and Bob for this generous gift and for their giving and giving over the years to All Souls. Continuing in this spirit of giving for today's offering, consider what trajectories we already impact with the programs of this church. We clothe people, we feed people, we soothe the soul with song. Whether you put money in the basket, or you've already sent in a check, or you have an automatic deduction, it's the passing of that basket, that ritual, that's important. Let your eyes meet the eyes of the person who hands you the basket, and as you pass it on, meet the eyes of that person. Enjoy the connection. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please remain seated and join me in the dedication of the offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
First reading is from the Jewish Holidays by Rabbi Michael Strassfeld. The Hanukkah story, found in the first and second books of the Maccabees, is fairly similar to the traditional story, except for one major exception. There is no mention of the cruse of oil, nor of the miracle. While both books mention the cleansing and rededication of the temple, and even briefly mention the relighting of the lamps in the temple, nothing is said of the miracle. Only in the Talmud do we find our long-lost miracle of Hanukkah. It asks, what is Hanukkah? And answers by saying that the Greeks defiled the temple, and when the Hasmoneans, another name for the Maccabees, and their descendants defeated them, they only found one cruse of oil with its seal unbroken. It contained enough oil for only 1 day, but a miracle happened, and the menorah burned for 8 days. It should be pointed out that the Talmud's account pays scant attention to the military victory of the Maccabees and focuses instead on the miracle of the oil. Scholars speculate that the differences in these texts reflect the history of the festival. At first, Hanukkah was celebrated as a reminder of the victory of the Maccabees. It also marked the rededication. Hanukkah means dedication of the temple. Only later did the miracle of the oil come to dominate the military victory?
The Hanukkah story begins with the outlawing of any non-Greek religion. Israel had already been under Greek rule for centuries, but it was Antiochus Epiphanes who in 167 BCE made it illegal to practice Judaism in Israel. Shabbat, the Sabbath, was banned, as was circumcision. It is told that the temple, the house of the Lord on earth, was desecrated. Jewish people were forced to sacrifice pigs to Greek gods. Please understand how horrific this was. Such laws and requirements were not an inconvenience for the Jewish people. They were a threat against all that was sacred and right in life. To be Jewish at that time was to practice the laws. To be forced otherwise was to be denied the identity, the peace of self that is religion. The practice of Judaism was outlawed. This is the story of Hanukkah. It begins with anguish and despair. The holiest place desecrated, being forced to worship other gods in ways that violate the practice of faith. There is a story of a woman named Hannah who had 7 sons. One by one, each of her sons refused to eat pork. One by one, they proclaimed their faith in God. One by one, they were put to death, and Hannah along with them. It was in the village of Modin that the elderly priest Mattathias was so enraged that a Jewish man was about to sacrifice a pig at a Greek altar, as he was forced to do by Greek soldiers. Mattathias killed the man. He and his 5 sons fought the soldiers and escaped to the mountains. They continued to fight the Greeks in guerrilla warfare. And when Mattathias died of old age, his son Judah took on leadership. Judah's nickname was Maccabee, the hammer, and those who followed him were known as the Maccabees. Over years, their tactics led to several victories and eventually liberated Jerusalem from Greek rule. They cleared the temple of all that the Greeks had done, built a new altar, and rededicated the temple to God. Hanukkah means dedication. And then there is the story of the oil. As we learned in the reading, this part of the traditional story isn't in 1st or 2nd Maccabees, the Hebrew books that are included in the Apocrypha, in which the story of the uprising and the victory is told. The oil is not part of the telling of the 1st century Jewish historian Josephus either. It is later, in the Talmud, that it is written about a miracle when the temple was rededicated. There was not enough purified oil to light the temple lamp for more than 1 day, but it would take 8 days to purify more oil. They lit the lamp anyway, and that small amount of oil burned in the sacred lamp for 8 days. The sacred lamp didn't go out. It burned against all reason. I learned this story as a child. I admit I wasn't that impressed by the miracle of the oil. Compared to the major military victory and being able to rededicate the temple, some oil burning extra long seemed like no biggie. It felt like an addendum to the story, a tidbit tacked on at the end. And then I learned that in some ways it is, for truly it was added by rabbis much later than when the rest of the story was written. Don't let me downplay this miracle too much, though. It is the center of the tradition, and it is no way my place as a non-Jew to make assertions about what is and is not the right focus of Hanukkah. And I want to remember the victory. It was a military victory. It was brutal, as war is always brutal, with losses on both sides, along with all of the sorrow and turmoil that goes along with loss in war. I do not celebrate war and its necessity. This victory, however, is of freedom. One of many wars fought for freedom, for religious freedom. The Maccabees fought for the right to worship God, to keep the laws of God, and to reclaim the temple for God. The freedom to practice their religion without interference from the empire that ruled over them. Hanukkah is, in this way, about liberation. Most of us in this room hold privilege that the liberation we seek is not directly about us. We, at this time, are free to practice Unitarian Universalism in our own unique ways without threat for doing so. Most of us are white and not directly threatened by racism. Most of us are straight and cisgendered, but far from all of us. Most of us are food and housing secure. Most of us are citizens of this country and live without the fear of deportation. So when I say, like the Maccabees, we seek liberation, I must mean in the larger sense. We are not in the hills hiding from the oppressors, fighting a guerrilla war for our own lives and freedom. We seek liberation for ourselves and everyone. That's part of liberation. None of us is free until all of us is free. And so we seek liberation for those around us, that we may know full liberation as well. The story of Hanukkah and the Maccabees is one of many where those who sought freedom prevailed. May it serve as a reminder that even when it is a few fighters against armies, the few can be victorious. Justice and liberation seem especially challenging right now. There are those in this country who seek to control by eroding freedoms on which we have relied, vilifying good people for their identities, and encouraging violence as they set up us versus them. It feels impossible to seek justice in this climate. So may the Maccabees be a symbol of hope. When you see a menorah in the window, may it remind you that justice has prevailed in the ancient times, many times since, and will continue. Against all odds, freedom is possible. So let us hold this story and take heart. There is liberation for all of us.
Like
This reading is called Hanukkah by the Reverend Lynn Unger, a UU minister. Come down from the hills. Declare the fighting done. Be bold. Declare victory. Even when the temple is wrecked, the tyrants have not retreated, only coiled back like a snake, prepared to strike again. But come down. Try to remember a life gentled by daily acts of domestic faith. The pots set to boil, the bed made up, the table set in calm expectation that when the sun sets, we will all still be here. Come down and settle. Unlearn the years of hiding. Light fires that can be seen for miles, that dance and spark and warm the frozen marrow. Set lamps in the window. Declare your presence, your loyalties, the truth for which you do not expect to have to die. It would take a miracle, you say, to carve such a solid life out of this shell of fear. I say, you are the stuff from which such miracles are made.
I grew up Unitarian Universalist in the 1980s and 90s. And my family celebrated Hanukkah every year. We're not Jewish. Yet every year, the menorah, the songs, the stumbling through the Hebrew blessings, the presents and the latkes, we're not Jewish. We never celebrated Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. We always attended the UU Seder at our church. Our minister was Jewish. But we did nothing else at home to mark Pesach or Passover. We were non-Jews who made a big deal out of Hanukkah every year. I still don't understand why. My mother still makes a big deal out of Hanukkah and made sure at Thanksgiving to give me a box of menorah candles. So, Hanukkah feels familiar to me. I learned to sing the blessings and how to light the candles the right way. The story is part of me, even though the Jewish people are not. I've wanted to preach about the liberative side of the story for years. And in college, I studied how Hanukkah still being celebrated likely contributed to the Jewish revolt against the Romans in 66 to 70 in the Common Era. That's a big deal for those of us who are into biblical studies. Jewish revolt, big thing. Anyway, I was fascinated that the story that I knew from my childhood helped to inspire a revolt against the Roman Empire, albeit one that ended poorly and with the destruction of the temple. This tidbit mattered more to me because I was raised celebrating Hanukkah. I've held Hanukkah dearly in my heart. But Hanukkah does not belong to me. I have forever been an outsider looking in on Hanukkah, a spectator who has mistaken care and self-experience for identity. I am not Jewish. It is not mine. Even with study, it is not my place to claim Hanukkah as my own. I've caught myself in a trap with which Unitarian Universalism struggles. How do we appreciate other cultures and religious traditions without appropriating them? And I had to rethink my plan for this morning's service last minute, as I realized that I had veered away from appreciation into appropriation. I know how to sing the blessings in Hebrew and how to light the menorah, so I was going to do this for you. since it is deemed appropriate to light the menorah for educational purposes outside of the nights of Hanukkah. But then I had to take a step back and remember that it is not my place to sing the blessings or light the candles, because I am not Jewish. If I'd realized this sooner, I may have asked who in the congregation is Jewish and asked them to light the menorah and recite the blessings. But by the time I had realized my mistake, it was too late to set that up. So this morning, we see an unlit menorah as a symbol that it is more important to avoid misappropriation of another's culture than to light the candles. When I was growing up, this recognition that appropriation causes harm did not yet exist. Doing things from other cultures, even adapting them to our own purposes, was seen as a perfectly acceptable thing to do. We, and here I'm considering all of Unitarian Universalism along with wider white culture, never stopped to ask whether those of the cultures from which we were borrowing practices and rituals thought it was acceptable. And as it turns out, it never really was. Cultural and religious practices belong to those of that culture or religion. There are some in every culture that will say that they think it's okay, but we should always err on the side of caution. It takes more effort to invite someone from that culture to share the practice with us, and they always have the opportunity to refuse. But this is what builds relationships and understanding. I made the decision not to light the menorah this morning, and I hope that I have not overstepped in my sermon. So to elevate Jewish voices in this space, I turned to a Jewish author for another insight into what Hanukkah means. Michael Strassfield writes, "Why was the miracle of the menorah necessary? Wouldn't the military victory have been enough? Notwithstanding the necessity to take up arms, you must know when to put them down. Too many wars are lost in their victories. Too many revolutionaries forget why they fought. At times, it is necessary to fight, but not by strength nor by power, says the Lord. It is the Spirit that must be the ultimate victor. If not, the enemy will have won, for you will become like him. It is not pacifism advocated here, but the miracle of the menorah. To have fought and yet be able to cleanse the temple, to rededicate it, to relight the menorah, this is the victory. Victory is to be free, not to triumph. Our liberation is not through fighting, through violence. It is to engage in the struggle and come forth with freedom. Yes, the Maccabees fought, but it was the ability to stop fighting and focus on the temple and its rededication that truly brought freedom. Jewish Unitarian Universalist minister and poet Lynn Unger echoes this sentiment. She implores the Maccabee fighters to return from the hills and rebuild their daily lives. She tells them to settle and to set lamps in the window. Declare your presence, your loyalties, the truths for which you do not expect to have to die. This invitation is away from fighting and into trusting a world in which the act of fighting is no longer necessary. She has moved the focus from all of the traditional parts of the story, the fighting, the temple, the miracle, and encourages us to recognize the people who spent years in the hills practicing warfare. It is a call to find new lives and new ways. And so I ask of you, what is it you have been fighting? In your life, why do you hide in the hills? What battles in your life might you declare over? It would take a miracle, you say, to carve out such a solid life out of the shell of fear. Maybe. Maybe you are not able right now to put down your weapons and declare victory. But I ask you to imagine you can, and to begin to find a way. You are not intended to spend all of your life fighting. You are not intended to spend your life in fear. It is time to rededicate yourself to that which is central to your identity. Claim the newness out of that which has been desecrated. Sanctify it, for this part of you is holy. I will echo Lynn Unger and tell you, I say, you are the stuff from which miracles are made. These are our lessons from Hanukkah, lessons of freedom and liberation for ourselves, for our world. May it be so. Amen. Please join in singing our next hymn, Rock of Ages. We release this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May you find liberation in your heart and in the world during this time of Hanukkah. May the lights of the season draw you into sanctifying this and every moment.